There are many good things about the Prairie State plant, and not the least of which is it provides 500 good Illinois jobs. But I want to go back to the volatility. I'm sure most of you have heard that new term, energy independence, and the new energy revolution taking place in the United States, with the potential of independence within our grasp. This idea of energy independence is being discussed within the power generation community by companies who actually make investment in power generation. To be clear, that when I talk about power generation, I'm talking about utilities like McDonough Power and Prairie Power and Menard Electric, Spoon River Electric, and those others that actually go out and obtain permits, they turn dirt, they put steel together, and they build something. In other words, those that actually do something that will provide long-term security and stability. I'm not talking about energy marketers or alternative retail electric suppliers who have yet to make any investment that goes beyond a couple of years. I'm talking about real utility companies who are looking forward through a maze of new regulations, looking at fuel costs, looking at fuel availability, and operational issues, and the list just goes on and on. And think of all those issues and try to calculate the impact to the ratepayer years in advance. That's what utility companies do and not marketers. So what's the right fuel moving forward? How do you anticipate a market that has a seemingly infinite number of variables? If you were to take a snapshot of how electricity was generated in 2012 across the United States, coal generated 37%, natural gas 30%, nuclear 19%, renewable energy 12%, and petroleum 1%. Over the next several years, reports state that anywhere from 1/5 to 1/3 of the coal fleet, which when you do the numbers amounts to 300 to 400 coal-fired generating plants, will be retired due to new emission standards. They'll be retired due to old age. They'll be retired for various reasons. They'll undergo conversions to natural gas-fired generation, or even to a biomass-type generation, which means using a renewable energy source like wood chips, switchgrass. And I remember several years ago, at the previous place I worked, there was a place that was burning walnut shells, of all things. That they were going to use that as a renewable fuel. The list of potential fuels is actually quite lengthy. Now consider, since the late 90s, about 35 coal-fired generation plants have been built, which might sound like a lot, but remember, we will be losing 300 to 400 plants in the next several years. And very few, if any, coal-fired plants are being built, or even planned to be built, because of the current regulatory uncertainty. To regulate the primary fuel for electrical generation to a point where it is no longer feasible to consider, is extremely risky. It's risky to the ratepayers. It does not make any sense to anyone in the utility business. I'm sure you've heard about fracking, which is a type of drilling that has been opened up new deposits of natural gas in places like Pennsylvania and North Dakota, and even right here in southern Illinois, where legislators recently approved it. The new abundance of natural gas discoveries has allowed natural gas prices to presently drift between $3 to $4 per million BTU, which is just a little bit higher than their historic lows they recently had. The concern in the generation community is what happens when a fuel that has as many applications becomes the primary fuel for generating electricity. Natural gas pricing already resembles the local gas station, where the daily price will rise and fall on inventory reports, plant problems, weather issues, and analyst predictions. Recently, I read where the entire Los Angeles Metro bus service, 2,200 buses in all, were were converted to compressed natural gas. And others like AT&T, Verizon, and UPS already have natural gas fueled trucks and are planning more investment. What happens when we begin exporting our $3 to $4 natural gas to countries that are now paying 3 to 4 times that amount? Natural gas is a commodity that is driven by supply and demand. So a colder than normal winter, a supply interruption, a hurricane in the Gulf could result in a sudden price increase for electricity. It'll create a short spike which will drive rates upwards. And I can tell you, I have 17 years in the utility business, and I know for certain that consumers do not like unpredictability in their bills from month to month. Nuclear power will always be looked at as a possibility, but the reality is that the fear factor associated with nuclear power, especially in light of the Japanese earthquake and the fear of an accidental release of radiation, is difficult to overcome. There are a couple of new unit construction projects right now in place and a handful of unit upgrades in place, but according to the Energy Information Administration, they do not see any significant growth in nuclear power through 2040. Renewable energy will also continue to be part of the generation discussion. Many large-scale wind farms have benefited from legislation that requires that investor-owned utilities have a power generation portfolio that contains a certain percentage of renewable energy. Through our power supplier, we purchase wind power generated from Pioneer Trail Wind Farm near Paxton, Illinois. There's a long discussion that we could have on the detriments and the merits of renewable energy, and the problem is that just about every argument that you would make would probably be right. The truth is that renewable energy is here to stay and will continue to grow, if not in large-scale projects like the still proposed Cardinal Point Wind Farm near Scioto, but in many small and localized projects. Several local homeowners participate in McDonough Power's net metering program, which allows them to return their own generated kilowatt hours back to the grid at the same rate at which they are purchased. This net metering program helps offset the high installation costs by giving each kilowatt hour they produce a higher value. Now, I'm not here to say that it does or doesn't make any sense, only to say that we are continuing to see more investment into renewable energy. I also think what you will see in the future is building codes beginning to change and include more energy efficiency design in new buildings and homes. As our board chairman spoke about earlier, our Home E program provided rebates to homeowners who invested in energy efficiency projects in their existing homes. And I think eventually you'll see more energy efficiency construction being required prior to construction rather than after. In our business, for example, the Department of Energy recently increased the efficiency of the transformers that you use right there at your home. And now higher efficiency Energy Star appliances are the norm. Many items like the good old-fashioned traditional incandescent bulb is headed for extinction due to the CFL bulb. And it just made me think of my mother. I opened up her closet the other day and she had a big stack of incandescent bulbs in there. So she was storing them. She didn't want to buy the CFLs. One of these days it'll be all over with. Also, the promotion of geothermal heating and cooling and a host of other items you saw tonight on the energy wall, which again was provided courtesy of Prairie Power, all tell me that smart usage and increased efficiency will play a big role in shaping our energy future. So the question was, where do we go from here? Simply put, we are working with our power provider, Prairie Power, to develop a power portfolio that is a diverse blend of coal, natural gas, renewable energy, some energy efficiency, and even buying power right off the market like some of our alternative retail electric suppliers that I spoke about earlier. But unlike those suppliers who can come and go when it is convenient to do so, we at McDonough Power along with our partners, some of who I just introduced, plan on being right here where we've been for the last 76 years, serving the members of McDonough Power. Now, for all the change that you've heard about, one of the things stayed remarkably unchanged, and that is our cooperative headquarters. As our board chairman announced earlier, later this year, we are beginning a major renovation of the building that we've called home since 1948. About 5 years ago, we remodeled the main lobby, added some paint and carpet, and began a review to our options as it related to the office. We looked at possibly building a new office, new warehouse, but ultimately decided that the renovation of the office and the replacement of the warehouse would satisfy all the issues that we needed to address. One of the main issues we wanted to address was the traffic flow around the building and add some designated parking spaces. Traffic around the building has always been a challenge, and utilizing the additional drive on the west side of the office for our construction trucks and deliveries will go a long way to helping us address these issues. We also wanted to upgrade our wiring and plumbing, and I would say re-insulate the building, but as our architect told us, that would imply there was insulation there to begin with. And he said there was none. This was certainly not a spur-of-the-moment decision, and our ultimate goal was to come up with a design that would serve the membership as well as the current office has for the last 65 years. In closing, the past year has been a very challenging yet rewarding year. Our wholesale power picture is beginning to take shape. We are continuing our system-wide maintenance program, which has resulted in substantial improvement in power quality. We have added a meter data management system, which you saw here tonight, which gives you, the member, a window into your own account, which helps you understand how your electricity is being used. We will continue to move forward with our right-of-way program and look at offering additional services such as new rate structures like time of use or prepaid metering, which might not appeal to some of you, but maybe for others. Most of all, we want to continue to be the McDonough Power you can depend on, just like you have for the last 76 years.